Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news at the start of another week, and we've got big conversations taking over in relation to Ruben Amorim and INEOS, also updates on outgoings, Marcus Rashford, a couple of others, and Amorim in secret talks or not so secret talks with a midfield target for Manchester United. Hello, welcome to the start of another week. We have and are unbeaten in the last four games. We have Spurs this Saturday lunchtime. It's a big game. We're working towards that. The past is the past. The future is yet to be written. Welcome to Natasha Bedingfield. If you know, you know. But we're going to start off talking about the update from Fabrizio Romano. We sort of touched on it a little bit last night, right at the end of the show, but we only got the very basics of it. There's a lot more there. Basically talking about how Manchester United, Ruben Amorim, INEOS are already in discussions about the January transfer market. We'll get into that detail in a moment. But I think the first thing I would say, and you probably won't read this anywhere else, is that we actually are in a really good situation to do something in January. There are no excuses like the previous years. John Murta coming out and saying, we like to do our business in the summer. We're very good at business in the summer. Well, we're not. And this is going to be a really challenging summer. It's going to be a challenging summer because it's going to be a massive World Cup, and that will shut down the opportunity to do business by about 60%. If you look at last summer, you basically had a run at it from May until the end of August. This summer, you're not going to get to talk to players until probably mid-July. So you're cutting down the opportunity by about, well, probably over 50%, like I say. Also, Manchester United are cash rich. Some people say, what are you talking about? We're in debt. We definitely had at least £50 million to go and get Baleba in the summer. We just couldn't negotiate a deal. We've also got Rasmus Højlund doing very well at Napoli, which is going to bring money in. We've also got Marcus Rashford doing very well at Barcelona, which is going to bring money in. And we've got the prospect of Casemiro's wage going if we want it to, and potentially even Bruno Fernandes going to Saudi if we want to. So Man United, okay, some of those things might not be happening until the summer, but they're there and they're going to happen. And Man United, therefore, cannot look at January and go, we don't like doing business in January, or we can't afford to do business in January. Neither of those two things wash when you think about the summer and the reduced opportunities because of the World Cup, and the fact that we do have funds coming in or there to be spent in relation to Baleba's money from the summer and what's coming in from other players. So that's an interesting backdrop before we talk about anything else, because I would not be surprised over the next coming days, weeks, that we do get some sort of nonsense coming out that it's a challenging market, we haven't got any money. We have to call that out because we don't. So what is Fabrizio Romano saying? So essentially what he's saying is, and there's quite a few bits to get into here. Let me just get it for you. Why are you still in that room and not your kitchen? Put back by a week. Don't talk to me about it. To be honest, I'm not actually that bothered. We were meant to be a new kitchen this week, and I will live stream from it when it's ready. But one thing got put back, the granite kitchen surface, which we were talking about last week. That got delayed till this Wednesday, which has meant that a lot of people didn't have to rush with like decorating and stuff. So they're back this week and they can take their time on it, which I think, when you're building a project, a little bit like Manchester United, do you want to rush and make mistakes, or do you want to take your time and make sure that you can look at what you've done and go, that's right? It's a bit like playing Dalot at left wing back or playing Gallagher at left wing back. There's a longer term left footed there over somebody who's just not very good. Anyway, let's get into this. So look, in private, the conversations have started between Amorim and the board for the January transfer window, the opportunities and what to do with the players who want to play more. This is a direct quote from Fabrizio Romano. So in private, the conversations have started between Amorim and the board for the January transfer window, the opportunities that can be done and what to do with the players who want to play more. So let's dissect that section first. I would not say that is encouraging breaking news. Let me know your thoughts. I think that Manchester United starting to talk about the January transfer window in the first week of November would actually be wrong and would actually be quite concerning, because we should be talking about this all the time, and I think we are. We should be looking at opportunities from last summer for January. For example, if United are looking at Ivan Toney from the Saudi League or Conor Gallagher from Atletico Madrid, then those conversations should have been happening before November. And they will be happening before November. I think what Fabrizio is talking about there is the actual conversation between Amorim, the board, and INEOS about what particular players we're going to move forward for, because we're not going to be sat there in the first week in November going, oh, what do you think about Conor Gallagher? Oh, what do you think about Ivan Toney? Oh, what do you think about Mainoo Ugarte? We'll have had to have shortlisted these people down, and now it's a case of whether we pursue, because you can't leave it that late. So I think those talks at the moment will be the final talks about what we're actually going to do in January, and that will, of course, as Fabrizio says, include outgoings as well. The encouraging thing about Zirkzee going is you'd have to bring a forward in, and the encouraging thing about Mainoo being moved on is you'd have to bring a midfielder in. You could argue that we can't really do either if we keep Zirkzee and Mainoo. And I think that's the interesting topic, is if we bring in a Conor Gallagher type player, which I'll expand on in a minute, then I think you have to move a midfielder on, because I don't think we can carry 5 in a season where we're not even using 4. So I think 1 would have to go. If you want to bring another striker in, then I think Zirkzee would have to go. So I think it's 2 in, 2 out, or 1 in, 1 out. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And I sort of touched on this last night. There was a conversation after the game yesterday, on Saturday, between Elliot Anderson and Ruben Amorim. Some people blew this up out of proportion, saying, oh, it's Amorim tapping up Anderson. You've got to be very, very careful about this, because over the years, this has happened multiple times. I mean, look, even the Lyon games against with Cherki, a lot of people were like, oh, what a great opportunity this is to get Cherki to come to Man United. He actually ended up really disliking Man United after those games, and we were never really in for him anyway. So just because Amorim may or may not have had a bit of a chat with Elliot Anderson doesn't mean he's going to sign for us. It's still only November as well, and he's not going to be going until the summer. And the way he's playing at the moment, I thought he was superb against us. That's not a deal that we're going to go and do in January, by the way. We haven't got those monies. We have got money to do business in January, but we haven't got the money to go and buy Elliot Anderson or Adam Wharton or Belabor, because those clubs are not going to want those players to go mid-season. And the price tags that they're looking at, if I'm Forest and Man United turn up and say, we will give you £70 million for Elliot Anderson, and we'll do it in instalments over the next 4 years. Nottingham Forest are going to go, up yours. We're going to keep him till the summer. And in the summer, when he's had another 4 months at this football club, maybe won a Europa League, maybe won Player of the Year for us, he will be worth 80 to 90 million pounds. And we might have a bidding war with 3 or 4 other clubs. So why would we let him go early for less money? They're not going to do it. And the same will happen with Belabor. And the same will happen with Wharton. So those players are very much in the United psyche, but they're not players that we're going to be going for in January. And I think we need to remove that conversation, because you've then got to go, well, do we go with what we've got until the summer and risk not being in the top 5? Or do we go, well, look, we need 2 midfielders. We'll go for an Anderson or a Belabor or whoever in the summer. But in January, we'll go for somebody that we think is better than what we've got, that we can utilise over the next few years. And I think that's what United need to do, because snooze, you lose, certainly. So I think that the conversations that we're having will be very interesting. I mean, Bulver says we need to buy now and talk later. I think it's, I think for me, it's, we've seen Chelsea behave like this. We've seen Liverpool behave like this. And we've seen Man City behave like this in recent years when it comes to the January transfer window. They go and get business done. And, you know, look at how many players in that Man City side actually have been bought in January. I know Mamouche didn't start yesterday, but he was a January signing. There are others as well. I think the midfielder, is it Nico? I think he was bought in January as well. Look at Chelsea. Enzo Fernandez is a January signing. There will be others as well. So we can't neglect something that gives us an opportunity to move up the table. And I think that's, I don't like it when last night, and I haven't come to that part of it yet to get more clarity, but somebody said last night, right at the end of the show, there's a quote from Fabrizio Romano saying that Amorim doesn't want any stock gaps and essentially would rather wait. That's not actually what was said. But Man United can't operate like that. And we talk about the stubbornness of modern managers on how, and let's keep it based on United here because it does happen at other clubs. There is a stubbornness with certain modern managers where they refuse to acknowledge the story. It's like picking up a book halfway through and saying, I'm not reading the first half, I'm just going to read the second half. And you go, but there's plot development, there's character detail there that you don't know because you're only picking the book halfway through. I don't care. I'm the new manager. I don't care about the first half of the book because I didn't write it. I'm writing the second half of the book and I'll write it in my own way. Stubbornness. Going into certain games playing the same way all the time. Stubbornness, okay? I'm not having players in January because I don't want risky players. I'm going to wait till the summer so I can get the players I want and I can have a pre-season with them. That's great. That's absolutely great if you're Arsenal. That's absolutely great if you're Real Madrid. It's absolutely great if you buy Munich. But when you're Man United and you're in the middle of a fight and you're being offered refreshments and you go, no, I'll wait till the fight's over, it's foolish. There are players in January that we can get. The bar is low. The bar is low, specifically low in the midfield. There is absolutely no way that Ruben Amorim can sit there and go, there are no midfielders in January that I want, so let's wait till the summer. Because there will be multiple midfielders that are available in January that are better than what we've got. And if you have to do loan to buy, you do loan to buy. You have to, but we cannot ignore this January transfer window. And I think this weekend probably was a good result in hindsight. I saw, it's took me 48 hours, but actually talking to some of the builders this morning and stuff, who aren't United fans, and we're just talking about it, every single one of them went, well, it's not a bad result, is it? It's a point. And I was like, you know what? It's not a bad result. It's what happens against Spurs that matters. But the positive about that result is it's a bit of a bump. The worst thing, I remember Solskjaer saying this, when we had that amazing start under Solskjaer, he was like, I don't want us to lose. But when we do lose, we'll find out a lot about this team. And we didn't lose on Saturday, but it's a game we should and did expect to win. I expected us to win. I think a lot of you did. But the good thing about it is we didn't lose, but also it's a bit of a reality bite. And I think my title of the match reaction was reality bite. And there was a few people in the comments going, how can it be a reality bite when we didn't lose? It's not being so negative. How can it be a reality bite when we didn't lose? And I'm like, anything can be a reality bite. If we'd won the game with a dodgy penalty, it's a reality bite because we got lucky. Like, we didn't get lucky against Liverpool. We didn't get lucky against Sunderland. We didn't get lucky against Brighton. We genuinely looked at those 3 wins and went, we're moving in the right direction. We had a reality bite on Saturday because we didn't win and we didn't play well. Why is that a positive? Well, a slap round the face is sometimes a wake-up call. But also, in relation to the transfer window, and I know that when there's a Glazer out movement and we sign a £100 million player, there's no longer a Glazer out movement. When there's a Glazer out movement and we win 6 games in a row, there's no longer a Glazer out movement. So if we keep winning between now and January, I guarantee there'll be a section of this fan base that go, we don't need to buy anyone in January. And then in February, we'll lose 4 games in a row and it'll be like, why didn't we buy everyone in January? Why didn't we? So I think the vast majority, as I say, of you are switched on people. And I think you will understand that we do need to make signings in January. Sometimes a Forest result exposes that, the need to do it. And the club are never going to sit there when they're winning games and go, we need to spend money. That's just not the way Man United is run. Whether you like Sir Jim, whether you appreciate the Glazers, I mean, who does? They won't sit there when we're winning and go, we need to spend money. They're just not like that. There are clubs that do that, by the way. Real Madrid will win the Champions League and still want to spend money. Football is not business. Like, some clubs don't care whether they're winning. They still want the shiny toy. They still want to keep building. Look at Liverpool. They won the Champions League and nearly spent £500 million. Man United, if we're winning, they won't spend because they're business people. So there is I don't want us to be dropping points like the weekend, but the positive is when we're having these conversations about signings, absolutely, it can be a bit of a reality bite, and it can be a little bit of a, we do need to do stuff. And I'm absolutely obsessed with us buying a midfielder in January. I need 2. I want a Baleba or an Anderson or a Wharton or a Stiller in the summer. But in January, I absolutely, I saw something this morning and it made me laugh. It was like, let's get Baleba and Anderson in the summer. And I'm like, we're not going to get those 2 players in the summer. It would be amazing to spend £200 million on 2 midfielders, but there is a market in the summer for midfielders that other people are going to enter. We're not going to get 2 of the prime targets at Manchester United, especially if we don't have European football. We're going to hopefully get 1. The other midfielder for me has got to be a Mainoo Kone, a Conor Gallagher, somebody a little bit less high profile, who can come in and improve what we've got, and that player has to be acquired in January. So let's see what happens with that. Let me get in some of your comments. Please do share the video and get involved. Thanks everyone who's watching this morning. I know there's a little bit of debate going on in the fan base at the moment. I just think, like, the weekend is gone. We can overanalyze. We have the time to do that, but Saturday will come very, very, very quickly. And we didn't lose. We didn't play well. Certain players showed what they are. Tigers don't, Leopards don't change their spots. Tigers, and they're always going to be inconsistent. But we've got to fight against that and take the positives and hopefully, build on it. With Believers form, we've got 10% chance. Forget the others, says Tilak. INEOS came in the first window. Yoro, Dalot, Mazraoui, etc. Revamped our defence. This summer, a whole new attack. I don't see it being out of the question for a full new midfield, says Sean. Thanks for your super chat, Sean. Hopefully Forest get relegated so we can get Anderson, says Maliki. There is, look, this is just my opinion. There is zero chance that West Ham and Forest get relegated now they've got Deitch and Nuno. Obviously, West Ham don't matter to us because there's no player I'd take from them, but Anderson and Forest won't get relegated. Do you think there's any chance of Stiller or Yulman in January? I don't think Gallagher is good enough to improve us, says John. Before I go back to some of the stuff that Amorim, to some of the stuff that Romano was saying, I think with regards to Conor Gallagher, he is divisive. We've run polls before, and I think 60% are yes, and about 40% are no. I look at Conor Gallagher, and my opinion of it is this. I think that he is a player that when he was at Chelsea, I really didn't understand why Chelsea got rid of him. And I think at Atletico Madrid, it hasn't necessarily worked out. But I do think that his age profile in his mid-20s, his Premier League experience, the way that he plays the game, I personally think that he would be an improvement on what we've got. I don't think that we are in a position at the moment where we can demand the very best out there. I think we've got to be selective. Look, we've been away from the top for many years now, over a decade. We've tried the shortcut many times and it doesn't work. I look at the problems that Thomas Frank is having at Spurs at the moment, and this is football to me. And this is the problem that sometimes we don't want to discuss. It's the patience, it's the right build. So you look at Brentford with Thomas Frank, and they're a better team than Spurs with Thomas Frank. Why is that? Because at Spurs, he's got better players on better wages. The reason for it is at Brentford, those players are a collective family that know their jobs and run through brick walls for the team, for the manager, and each other. And they're Brentford. At Spurs, you've got internationals, highly paid players, egos. I mean, the modern footballer, stereotypically, is a bit of a knobhead. And not all of them, but some of them. And I think Spurs have got a few. And Thomas Frank is still the same manager, but he cannot create that unity, we're in this together against the odds, running through brick walls, because the players, even though they're better on paper, cannot be a collective like Brentford can. The power in football at the moment is not just having good players, it's putting a team together that's really willing to run through brick walls 90 minutes every single week. We have that problem at Man United, and Thomas Frank's got that problem at Spurs, and hopefully it will continue on Saturday. So when people say we need to go and get Adam Wharton and Belabor and the very, very best, yeah, look, I like the profiles of those players, although Belabor, again at the weekend, wasn't that good for Brighton, even though they won. It was the guy next to him who wasn't very good against us. What was his name? Ayala. You bring in, I don't know, someone like Conor Gallagher, who gives you 7/7.5 a week, every week. That's going to be better than our midfield at the moment. Now, I'm not saying Conor Gallagher is the solution to Man United's problems, but what I like about Mazraoui and Dalot is their ability to put in a 7 out of 10 every week. And we don't have that at United. We have players that can do an 8, 2 5s, a 7, another 5. It's up and down like a bloody graph. I think that we cannot be snobby about the sort of players that we're looking to sign. It cannot always be the 80, 60, 70 million pound signing. Sometimes it's got to be the 40 million pound signing with a proven track record of being consistent. And I think at Chelsea, Conor Gallagher was very, very consistent. I personally, as an English person, don't mind him being in a World Cup squad, because I think he's, the sort of player that you want in a squad, who maybe doesn't start, but certainly can do a job. And beggars can't be choosers. I just think that if you're saying to me, it's Conor Gallagher on a loan to buy in January, or it's nobody, why would I take nobody? And that's where I am. It's not like I'm going, Conor Gallagher's going to change the world. It's that he will improve us in an area where we're weak. And also, if it doesn't work out, we might not even need to buy him anyway. So, and also, it's not really about Conor Gallagher. I've said this before, and I need to repeat it again. He represents the type of deal we should do in January. And whether it's him or somebody else, that type of deal needs to be done. We cannot just wait for Elliot Anderson or Carlos Baleba in the summer. We have to have a plan for something in January, and it has to be somebody that improves us on what we've got in an area where we're weak. There may be 4 or 5 other Conor Gallaghers that we could go for across Europe or in the Premier League that will improve us in the midfield. Because, as I said last night, the big problem we've got at the moment is you've got Casemiro, you've got Bruno, who both were very average / poor on Saturday, and they played 90 minutes each. Bruno Fernandes is a 31-year-old number 10 playing 90 minutes in the midfield, and Casemiro is 33 with his legs gone playing 90 minutes in the midfield. You've got Ugarte in his mid-20s, you've got Mainoo who's 20, sat there not being used when 2 30-year-old midfielders are not playing well. So whatever we think about Mainoo and Ugarte, Amorim thinks this: our midfield's playing crap, they're both in their 30s, I'm still not going to bring these young lads on. They are not midfielders for us anymore. Until we're proven wrong, they are not midfielders. If you can't use either of those players in a game like Saturday, they're not trusted by Amorim. They're just not. Tell me I'm wrong. He doesn't trust those 2 players. Like Casemiro and Bruno, whatever you think about the first hour, and I thought they were average, but in the last half an hour, I think they were out the game, really, and he still won't take them off. And he's got Ugarte and Mainoo. So we absolutely need to go to Amorim and go, you don't use Mainoo and Ugarte. You're always using Casemiro and Bruno. You've got to make subs in the midfield. Who can we get in January that you're going to use, that you're going to utilise, that's actually going to be in your head competing with Bruno and Casemiro? Because Mainoo and Ugarte clearly aren't in your head competing with those 2 players. And that's something I think we need to look at. Some good comments coming in this morning. People forget we still need a midfielder, says Nikki. We need 2. We do need 2. And I think that we are going to be, I think that, I can't predict Spurs at the weekend. And it's not the preview, so I don't have to. But I can't predict Spurs at the weekend. Everton, after them at home, should be a win. We're good at home. Crystal Palace away worries me. So these next 3 games, when you look at the way the results went at this weekend, this time last week, we think we might be, I almost need to apologise because you lot won't own it. Maybe some of you will. I said last week on 2 occasions, you don't need to go and find it. I said on 2 occasions last week, why can't we be the team that finishes second? I look at the league table at the moment. I don't think we're good enough to win it. I think Arsenal are on a different level. But maybe we could do what Jose and Ollie did. Maybe we could be the best of the rest. Why can't we finish second this season? I said that twice. I said it on the Monday and I said it on the Friday night show as well. Idiot, moron, Pratt, Turbo Pratt. That's what I look like this morning. But if we beat Spurs next week and the results go our way with Liverpool and Man City, we might be back there again, and I might be going in a week's time, why can't we finish second? So football changes really quickly. And I think that a week ago it looked really good because Liverpool, Man City and Chelsea had lost. They all win, we draw, and suddenly you're like, oh God, they're all going to run away with the top 4 and we're fighting for 5th. Things can change really quickly in this league. We cannot, in my belief. I'm wrong on this. And I want to be wrong on this. I said at the start of the season that midfield's going to be a problem all season. And I know people want to talk about Dalot and some people want to talk about Sesko, but the number one problem I saw, and many of you saw in the summer, that we didn't solve was the midfield. The goalkeeper was a big problem, but we did do it right at the end. We are better now. But the midfield, we left it. We've left that donut with a hole in the middle, and that is an area that is going to be a problem. But we've got a good fixture list in December. The next 3 games are challenging in the sense that Palace away will be tough. We don't know about Spurs, and I think we'll beat Everton. So if we can come through the next 3 games and be there or thereabouts and have a good December, you're into January, you bring a midfielder in, momentum. I mean, imagine how good it would be if we do okay between now and New Year's Eve. We put ourselves in a position where we're like, I don't know, 5th, and then we go and get a midfielder. We're buzzing. And also remember that somebody said yesterday, and they made a great point, like, oh, Villa might be good in a race for 5th. Why will Villa be good in a race for 5th? Imagine Villa in March and April and May. We've been there when you've got important Europa League games. Look at what happens to your Sunday game in the Premier League when you're playing important Europa League games on a Thursday. So Villa won't be getting 5th. Newcastle are nowhere near it. All the other clubs are going to have to play Europa. I think it would be criminal in a footballing sense not to go and do something in January. And I think that's what these conversations are all about. And that's where we've got to look at it. Let me just go. I just realized we've tangented off a little bit there off one comment, but there was other stuff. This was the most important bit. Conversations in private have taken place between Amorim and the board for the January transfer window. Amorim's message to the board is that he wants players who can help today and tomorrow, which is a very interesting sort of statement, isn't it? He wants players that can help today and tomorrow. No stopgaps then. But that's a little bit different to the message I had late on in the 8 o'clock show last night, because I think if you want players for today and tomorrow, I'm okay with that, because what we mean with that is that if we go and look at Grimaldo from where does Grimaldo play? Leverkusen. I think is he at Leverkusen? I'm Bundesliga bridge, and I get confused between Frankfurt, Leverkusen, and Leipzig sometimes. I think Grimaldo is at Leverkusen because he scored 2 free kicks again. Yeah, he's at Leverkusen. Thank you, Moon. If you go and get Grimaldo, very, very good left back, but he's for today, not tomorrow, because of his age as a fullback. Luke Shaw's not even 30, and he's never going to be a fullback again. So that would be a short-term thing. We have to go for players for today and tomorrow. We don't want players that are here for today, but not tomorrow. And we don't want players that are here for tomorrow, but not today. So essentially, it's a bit ageist, but there is a profile of player that we need to sign. And bar Dorgu and Yoro, we've done it really. Sesko is a player that can play today, but will get better tomorrow. Dalot, Mazraoui are for today and tomorrow because of their age profile. So are Cunha and so are Mbeumo. They're ready today and they're here tomorrow. And those are the signings we need to go for. Some people interpreted it last night that means we don't need to buy players in January because January signings are stopgaps. We need to get that mentality out of our head. That's a Murta and Glazer thing. They always try to dismantle the January transfer window for money. They always tried to make out the January transfer window was a desperation stopgap window. And it'd be interesting to see whether that changes over the next 2 months with Amorim and Barada, because United did that on purpose. From a financial point of view, they tried to diminish the January transfer window. Murta used to do it. He used to make out like he said, we don't like that January window. It's like shopping in Poundland when we want to go to Harrods. Snobby knobheads who didn't understand football. The great thing about football now is that it's so universal. You're United fans, but you'll be aware of what's going on with Liverpool. So people like Gakpo, who are first-team players for Liverpool, were bought in the January transfer window. Enzo Fernandez, one of Chelsea's best players, was bought in the January transfer window. Man City have done it. We did it. The stupid thing is, we tried to diminish the January transfer window. Bruno Fernandes was bought in the January transfer window. So the January transfer window is a time where you can buy players for the now and tomorrow. I think just don't misinterpret what Romano is saying about what Amorim is wanting. He wants players for today and tomorrow. You can definitely buy players like that. Gakpo was a player for today and tomorrow for Liverpool. Mamouche is a player for today and tomorrow for Man City. Enzo Fernandez was a player for today and tomorrow for Chelsea. Conor Gallagher could be a player for today and tomorrow for Manchester United. there may be others. Somebody just said, what about Angelo Stiller? I feel like Stiller has to fall into the category of Elliot Anderson, of Carlos Baleba, and Adam Wharton, in the sense that he can only be bought in the summer. Because although there is a release clause, it's really easy for Stuttgart to give him £2 million and, you know, increase that release clause. I sort of look at it and go, if I was rebuilding Man United's midfield, it would be Stiller and it would be Anderson. And if I want, and we're not going to do that, because to do that, we've got to wait till the summer, and that won't happen. We won't get two like that in the summer. Somebody's got to come in January. So you either go, we're only going to get Anderson, or we're only going to get Baleba, or we're only going to get Stiller, or you do something outrageous in January. Now, look, we are covering the Bundesliga a lot on That's Football. Stuttgart did sell Voltemada right before the start of the season. So they're not a club like a Napoli that will go, we're not selling a player. They sold Voltemada right before the start of the season. They sold him so close to the end of the transfer window that they didn't even have time to do a replacement. So Stuttgart will do a deal if it's a good deal. But Angelo Stiller is such an important player for them, and they are in the Europa League, and they are in touching distance of the top 5 in the Bundesliga. So you could do that deal in January, but you'd have to be 100% sure that that's the player you want, and you'd have to put good money on the table. I mean, look, I'd be over the moon if we went for Stiller in January and Anderson in the summer. That would be brilliant, but we've got to do something in January. And also, the issue you would have with Stiller, and the reason it won't happen, is Bruno. Stiller basically does Bruno's job better than him in a midfield sense. Obviously, he's doing it in the Bundesliga, but what I'm saying is he is a midfielder who does all the passing, all the lot. So if you bought Stiller, you'd have to drop Bruno. So we're not going to do that in January. So, yeah, I think we will end up with one out of Anderson, Stiller, Baleba, and Wharton, unless we ignore the January transfer window and try and get two of them. But by doing that, what are you going to do to your season? Jacob says, is Anderson at Atalanta no longer an option? I think we spoke about this last week. Thanks for your super chat. I think with regards to Edison at Atalanta, I don't even know how well they're doing at the moment, but he was very much a previous regime target, like Ten Hag, and before Amorim. So I've never heard of Edison. There was a couple of stories in the summer, but it's not really a target, I don't think, anymore. Glenn C says, if it was the old structure, they would say we would sorry, Glenn. He says, Glenn C says, if it was the old structure, they would say may not get players today, maybe not get players tomorrow, but we'll get players soon. That's a film. Is that Gone the Wind or Casablanca? Gone with the Wind. Saint Blanco says, well, I'll tell you what will be gone with the wind. European football if we don't get a midfielder in January. Amorim is genuinely... Saint Blanco says, Amorim is genuine about Kobe being Bruno's successor. Take the World Cup talk away. He probably wants a midfielder to go with, not for Mainoo. I mean, Saint Blanco, I would love... sometimes I read a comment, and I'm sure everybody who's watching live or not live, is there any of you that don't wish that statement was true? Before I dismantle it, is there anybody that doesn't wish this is true? That Mainoo really does see Kobe as Bruno's successor, and he wants a midfielder to go with Mainoo and not replace him? Is there anybody who actually believes that? Because I would love to believe it, absolutely love to believe it, but I'm sorry, I have seen no evidence that that is true. Absolutely none. And history shows us that it's not true, Saint Blanco. You might be true, but I think it's so unlikely, I would say it's not true. I don't see the behaviour of Amorim being about Mainoo being the successor for Bruno and the player he wants to build his midfield around. Because I have never seen a manager treat a player that they want to build their midfield around like this. And I'm not saying Amorim's wrong for doing this. Not at all. We're unbeaten in 4 games. We are getting better. But at no point in the last year has Amorim given any evidence that he rates Mainoo or trusts him to build his midfield around. Conversely, Erik ten Hag made it very obvious he wanted to build his midfield around Mainoo. Mainoo played most weeks under ten Hag and was a key first-team player. In the last 12 months, Mainoo struggled to get anywhere near the worst Man United side in Premier League history last season. And this season, it's even worse. He cannot get any game time. So I've seen zero evidence that Amorim sees Mainoo as a midfielder that he wants to build a midfield round. Absolutely none. I'd love to be wrong and I'd love you to be right, but show me the evidence. Like, he doesn't trust him. He doesn't trust him. Like, he brought him on last week, didn't bring him on this week, barely starts him, doesn't use him, prefers Bruno and Casemiro over him. I don't see it. I think if I look at somebody like Pep Guardiola and his treatment of people like Phil Foden in developing him, you see a lot of him. If I look at Sir Alex Ferguson and his development of Paul Scholes, Ryan Giggs, David Beckham, you see a lot of them. You look at the way Fabregas was treated at Arsenal, you see a lot of them. We don't see Mainoo. So I don't see it. And this is why I completely agree with Mainoo going, I want to leave. I want to go on loan. And I can't believe that, because at the end of August, I was very annoyed by it, but I actually understand it. And this is the thing we don't get to know. We don't get to know what's going on behind closed doors. I don't see any evidence that he's trying to build a midfield around him. He might be setting that challenge and saying, I might build this midfield around you if you can prove that you can do it. But we don't see any evidence that he's looking to do that, in my opinion. But, as I said, the biggest indicator you can take from the weekend is that the midfield did not play well. I saw nobody give Casemiro and Bruno higher than an average 6. And a lot of people gave Bruno lower than that. You're chasing the game, you're not playing well, and you still keep those two players on the pitch. And you've got Mainoo and Ugarte sat there and you don't use them. That, to me, and Amorim's got every right, I'm not criticising him, but he does not trust those two players. He doesn't trust them at all. Ten Hag let Alvaro leave, and now we're stuck with Dalot, says Cigar. It was the old, all I'm going to say about Alvaro Fernandez is that I do not want to talk about it at all, because Ten Hag's not even the manager anymore. So what's the point in moaning over something that's not even here? But I remember the summer and somebody said to me, it was 2 summers ago, they said, who do you think is going to be the breakthrough young player this year? And I said, I've got a feeling it's going to be Alvaro. I think he's going to be the breakthrough player, because I think he's just got everything in his game to make that step up. Within 3 weeks, we'd loaned him to Benfica. We'd sold him to Benfica, and now he's playing at left back for Real Madrid. And I'm not saying I'm the oracle, but I do remember saying that. And you look at it and you go, how did we miss that? I wasn't the only one that said that he looks like he's got. I mean, the thing about him as well is, for a young player, he's really big. Like, he's got the physique, he's got the speed, he's very cultured on his left foot. I mean, it's PK all over again. We had Gerard PK at Man United. We had him at Man United, and we let him go to. Well, he went back to Barcelona. I don't know how you misprofile that. I really don't know how you misprofile that. But Amorim's picking Dalot at left wing back. Why is he doing that? Ten Hag replaced De Gea with Onana. I mean, he should be in prison. He shouldn't have got the Leverkusen job. And I never really had a massive problem with Ten Hag. I wanted him to do well, but that Onana for De Gea thing, that's like, the police should be investigating that. That goes beyond a football mistake. So, yeah, we had a very good left back in our youth system that now plays for Real Madrid, and we got basically no money for it. Glenn C, if it was, I've done that one. Thank you very much. Does United not owe his fans a midfielder for Christmas, says Vincent? I think Man United owes this fan base a lot more than that. Doesn't mean we'll get it. Jarbar Drink says, so much deja vu with the Mainoo situation and what Donny went through. Maybe there is something for his fans to learn from the past situation. Yeah, I read something this morning about the Dalot situation, and it was a post on X saying that this fan base always has a fall guy. There's always a player that they have to abuse, and they never learn whether it's Fellaini, whether it's Harry Maguire, and now it's Dalot. And that's why when I'm asked about Dalot, I refuse to make it, personal or anything like that, because, I don't think that serves a purpose. Also, I'm coming from a position where I know what Dalot is like as a person, and how hard he works at his career. And he will be very aware of the feeling towards him in the fan base, and that won't be a nice feeling for him. So some people like to be quite blunt in the way that they, he's fucking shit, get out of my club, can't, and all that sort of stuff. I just think that he's not good enough. That's the end of the he's not good enough. I don't know why Amorim's using him. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Like, there's not even a hint that he's good enough. And I actually don't think he's good enough at a right wing back either. So Dalot shouldn't be in the team. But I think that we do also have to be very, very switched on to the fact that, as the super chat says from Jarbar Drinks, when it comes to Mainoo, a lot of us at the start of the season were sort of backing Mainoo and having a little bit of an indirect to Amorim by going, you should be building your midfield around Mainoo, not out of position Bruno or legs have gone Casemiro. But we don't know what goes on behind closed doors. And we can only, a lot of the time we're right. Don't pick Onana, he's rubbish. Oh, we're out the Carabao Cup. Told you so. Pratt man flying through the air, he's shit. Don't put Dalot at left wing back, he'll cost us goals and games. Oh, look, we've drawn to Forest. So we are right. It's not like we're exclusively wrong. A lot of what we know is right, but not everything. And in fairness, I think if Mainoo was given the starts that Bruno's been given, then we would see a different Man United side. I think we'd be better in possession. I think we'd feed Cunha into feet. But Amorim's chosen not to do that. And in the minutes we've seen from Mainoo, I don't think we're missing anything. My only complaint is I think Mainoo should have been given a run in the team ahead of Bruno Fernandes, who's not a midfielder. But in the fullness of time, I think Amorim's been proven right. My only issue is I think you've got to let Mainoo go. It's not fair on him. He is entitled to a career that you're not giving him over 12 months. But yeah, I think you make a good point. Like, as time passes by, it's becoming more and more clear that we can't just leave Mainoo sat on the bench, and we're not going to give him minutes because the manager doesn't trust him. So look, maybe Mainoo hasn't reacted very well to being not allowed to go in August, and wants to go in January. Maybe Amorim didn't react very well to the stories coming out that he wanted to go in the final week. We don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but what's not going on is Mainoo forcing his way into the team. How can they prove their worth when he won't give them a chance, as class of 99? So frustrating to see when managers act like this. Not a good trait, says class of 99. Would you rather loan or buy a profile like Conor Gallagher in January? Our signing should be starting quality, and he may not be in 6 months to a year, says James. I think, look, Conor Gallagher in a way represents something to me. It doesn't necessarily represent Conor Gallagher. It's a January midfield signing that can come in and challenge and be an important player for us. So that to me is sort of like what I'm looking at when I look at Conor Gallagher. It doesn't have to be him. But what I would say with regards to what you're saying there is that, you're sort of like saying Conor Gallagher's a stopgap. I don't see it like that. I think if we went and got him, he is 25, and I think a game like Forest at the weekend, he might have started Conor Gallagher and not started Casemiro. I think he certainly would have brought him on with half an hour to go. So straight away, you're getting more than you're getting from Ugarte and Mainoo. On top of that, if that midfielder then helps us get to Europe next season, instead of having a week off between Spurs, we've got another 10 to 15 games where players like that will play. So don't always think about starter. I think every player you buy should be somebody that can challenge for the first team, but not everybody will start for the first team. So someone like Conor Gallagher that I think could start ahead of Casemiro, but also will come on for Casemiro with half an hour to go, is better than what we've got with Mainoo and Ugarte at the moment. And if we get European football because of that, which we should, we'll have more games anyway with more rotation. I mean, what would we do this season if we were in the Champions League with that midfield? What would we do? Would we be being embarrassed? Somebody said this the other day in the chat. Great comment. If we'd have beaten Spurs, but we'd had the same summer transfer window, and that's debatable whether we would or we wouldn't. We still spent quite a lot of money. Let's imagine we beat Spurs and we're in the Champions League. What would we be doing this season with that midfield? Like, you can't play Casemiro and Bruno twice a week. So you would have to use Ugarte and Mainoo. And would that work? Would we be better by utilising them? I mean, I'm not saying we'd be worse or better, but what I'm saying is, if on Wednesday night we were playing whoever Spurs are playing, and then we play Spurs at the weekend, would we win on Wednesday and win on Saturday? Would be worse? I think there's a case to say both. I think if Mainoo and Ugarte were being trusted to start games more often, would they be better players? Probably. I don't know. I certainly think we need more games. We've got too many players. But I go back to what I say. I don't think Amorim trusts Mainoo and Ugarte, and I think that is not up for debate. Just on outgoings, discussions have started with regards to players leaving in January. Players outgoing are a big topic, with Roma also being interested in Zirkzee. Ruben Amorim has made it clear that he does not want short-term signings. He wants players who can be in the squad for the long term, which I've already discussed as there as well. So, look, there's a sense of boredom around. I was talking to Beth about this last week. She was going to do a show leading on Zirkzee, and I said, please don't. And she was like, why? I said, it's so boring. It's so boring to talk about Zirkzee because, he's not playing, and surely he wants to play. So I don't know. I don't know. I think we're in this permanent state of roller coaster ride at Man United. 1 week we're really excited, the next week we're like, reality. But what's the most consistent thing at Man United is certain players are not getting game time, and they've got every right to knock on the door. And if we can move Zirkzee on in January, then we have to bring a forward in. And we've just spent a long time talking about the midfield because I think it's the most important area of the pitch for Manchester United in a first team sense. But there are those of you out there that are a little bit worried about Sesko. And what I would concede is I think Sesko would be better with a little bit of competition, which funnily enough is what Rasmus wanted to be. Like, Rasmus initially did not want to leave Man United and was content to be the backup striker challenging Sesko, believing that he could challenge him. United decided against that. So, funnily enough, we do now need to do that. Kai says, thinking Gallagher will bench Casemiro is laughable. I'm glad you're having a laugh on a Monday morning, mate, but you need to grow up and realise that you're not the oracle and your opinion doesn't matter any more than mine, and mine no more than yours. I don't think it's laughable that Conor Gallagher could bench Casemiro, because I actually don't think Casemiro's as good as you think he is. I watched the game on Saturday, maybe you didn't, and our brilliant midfield of Bruno and Casemiro got absolutely dominated by Nottingham Forest's midfield. So you can laugh all you like, pal, but I don't think our midfield's any good. And if you think Conor Gallagher can't bench Casemiro, then I think you need to watch a little bit more football. I'm not saying he would bench him, but we do need to bring a midfielder in January that can challenge our midfield. And I don't think it's much of a challenge. I really don't. And I watched that on Saturday. I don't think it's much of a challenge. I think we've got two midfielders who get the ball and get rid of it as quick as they can, pumping a long ball, trying to win set pieces where they're good at them. But we get run through all the fucking time, every bloody game. Don't you think it's unfair to not give Mainoo and Zirkzee minutes as class of 99? I think it was a bit harsh on Saturday, but the manager must manage. I don't have a problem with a manager making that. The biggest problem at United is not having the ability to pick the players that you want to pick. Having a manager with the luxury to be picking players that we think should be picked, I think, is a positive. The manager must always manage. If they lose their job because of things like that, then there can be no complaints. I think sometimes you look at it and go, they're getting the sack because they've not really been backed. Like, I'll never have a problem with the manager picking players that benching players I think should start, because that's a luxury that they choose to take. Not enough games. We need injuries for Kobe to play. Kobe to play, says Tiao. Thank you very much. There we go. Okay. Appreciate your comments this morning. Good conversation. Feels like a good morning show. Don't forget, Beth's back at 2, reviewing the weekend and all that. Look, I get the fact that some of you don't like Conor Gallagher, but what you're not doing, because you have an inability to do it, is in the question of would you bring Conor Gallagher in January or nobody, you're just going Conor Gallagher shit. And I understand that most of you have the ability to use your brain, and some people do not have the ability because you're so lost on not rating Conor Gallagher. The point is, Conor Gallagher can represent whatever you want. It could be another midfielder in January. The point is, we need to sign a player in January. We can't wait till the summer. And the point is, we can't go, I'd rather have nobody than that. So that's where I'm coming from. You can go, I don't rate Conor Gallagher, but you're not answering the question, are you? We need a midfielder in January. We won't get Anderson. We won't get Stiller. We won't get Belaber, and we won't get Wharton. So we need a solution in January, because if we don't, we'll see more games like the weekend where our midfield is absolutely shit and the manager doesn't trust Ugarte or Mainoo to change it. Thank you. Thanks everyone for watching this morning. Please do smash a like on the video. I'm back on the show at 8 o'clock. Love the 8 o'clock shows. We've got a 2 o'clock show for you as well. I'm just about to drop a video on That's Football, which I thought I'd scheduled, but I haven't either. So thank you very much for that. Trevor says Ugarte is miles better than Gallagher. And that's when I decide I've had enough internet for the day, because Trevor, you're not the manager of Man United, and Ruben Amorim doesn't agree with you. And until you get the job, your comment is completely and utterly your opinion, but it's not definitive that we all go, Trevor's right, let's leave it. He doesn't want to use Ugarte. He doesn't want to use Ugarte. So we've got to bring in a player in January that he wants to use. And I've spent the last 2 shows trying to explain this point to people, but they don't want to listen because they just want to listen to this. You're not the manager. He doesn't trust Mainoo and Ugarte. So we have to bring a player in January that he does trust, because we can't keep using Casemiro and Bruno for 90 minutes every bloody week, which is what he's doing at the moment. We have to bring a midfielder in January, and we're not going to get one of the big players. So we've got to find somebody like a Conor Gallagher where Amorim goes, I like him, and then we bring him in and he gets used, because he ain't using Ugarte and Mainoo. It's as simple as that. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care, stay safe, and I will speak to you later.